Hey guys, kinggath here, and in this guide, I'm going to go over the personal guard system. So the personal guards is a very deep system. It is a ton of fun, and I'm almost certainly going to miss something in this video, and you'll likely be asking me to make follow-up videos on this system. But effectively what it does is the personal guards allows you to take any of your soldiers and turn them into companions. And as companions, they will follow you along, they will join in combat, but unlike companions, they have some extra things going on. For one, they are mortal, they can be killed. Another is they will help loot your kills. You don't have to go around looting all the kills that they are a part of. And third, they will actually gain experience toward their next rank while in your party, and there's no cap on that. So unlike the training yard, which has a cap of rank 3, your personal guards can make it all the way to rank 5 while in the party with you. So I'm going to go over this in a few sections. We're going to start out with, I'm going to show you how to add and dismiss personal guards, and then we'll get into how you control them, how you track them, some of the options that are involved in them, and some of the background information about how these actually function. So let's start with adding your personal guards. So right now I've got a little squad here. I think I'm already at the max. By default, out of the gate, you can have up to 3 personal guards, and that number increases as you level up, and if you have the inspirational perk, you gain additional slots. So every time one of those things happen, when you add that perk or when you level up to a currently it's multiples of 10, so every 10 levels you get another slot, but that might change in patches, so I don't like to talk specific numbers. And you'll get a notification in game. A little pop-up will tell you gained an extra personal guard slot. But we're going to go ahead and try to add one. So what you do is you bring up the soldier menu, go to Add to Squad, and you'll see a personal guards option here. And I already have a full squad, so I can't take any more. I've got my 3. But if you draw your weapon, just like a companion, they will draw their weapons. If you're using an NPC with the stealth animation capability, when you go to crouch, they will as well. Super mutants do not have that capability, so they can't go into stealth. But most of the humanoid NPCs will stealth with you, so you can have them along as a little stealth set of companions. But unlike the normal companions, we actually have a squad command system. So you can actually issue commands to your entire squad all at once, and I'll demonstrate that in a moment. But before we get into showing you how to command these units, I want to talk about some of the background information on these as far as how these actually function. So I mentioned the fact that you have a cap for the max number of guards you can have. I didn't show you this, but one thing to note here is you see that it has the command, and as you get closer, it'll switch so you get that manage option. Well, your remove from squad option is there. So if you needed to clear one out so you could grab somebody different, you can do it there. Another useful piece of information, you can take most special units with you as personal guards, but they do not gain experience. That is still limited to the soldiers. It is something that we would like to expand on in the future, but it will require work from all the faction pack authors to do so, and I like to keep that to a minimum of forcing faction pack authors to have to update. So we would need to come up with a way for them to, special units to rank up that would make sense on all unit types. For example, it makes sense for a soldier to rank up. It makes less sense for something like a vertibird to rank up. Which brings me to another point. The add-on pack authors can flag certain special units to not be able to be brought as personal guards, because it would be awkward for said vertibird to be brought along as a special unit, although could be kind of fun. But the issue there would be things like when you get into the squad command system, it could be real awkward for certain units to be following those commands. So that's one thing to note. Another thing with personal guards, I mentioned they are mortal that can be disabled, and I'll show you all of those options in a little bit here. Further with personal guards, they are still considered members of the outpost that you recruited them from. So they will still use a bed there. They still use rations, wages, and equipment, and they do not provide any benefits. So they don't provide any control score. They don't provide any rations, wages, or equipment themselves if they were assigned to an agricultural, commercial, or industrial plot. you're effectively, there is a cost to having personal guards, and that they're straining the resources of your army by just by existing. So this was done intentionally for balance. This is a big deal to gain a bunch of extra firepower with you, especially once you get them higher in rank. So this is kind of this. Some people might consider this to be completely unbalanced and game breaking, but I give you guys the freedom to control that. So you don't have to bring all of these. If you want to limit yourself to one personal guard and no companions, you can do that, or you can go nuts and bring a giant squad with you. But we did try and balance it and giving it appropriate costs. So the wages, rations, and equipment cost is definitely real. The fact that they're mortal is a cost, and then there are additional costs you can incur on yourself via some options, which I will show you in a moment here. Let's see. In addition, I mentioned already that they do not provide any benefits to your outpost. If they die, they do trigger a morale penalty on their home outpost. So the morale, again, the mortal status is very, very relevant. And I think that about covers it. I think the only thing we didn't cover here as far as like background information is when you roll into an outpost. So if you walk into one of your outposts that has an armory, as long as your equipment score is full, they will upgrade their gear if they've had a rank up since they've been away. So you do have the option to go roll into one of your settlements with an armory to get them to quickly equip up their latest gear. So I think let's talk about options now. So we'll pop into our MCM menu. Some settlements Conqueror, there's a separate section for personal guards. So I mentioned that they will help loot their kills. So this is something I always wish companions did. So I went ahead and added it in as part of your squad. Is if you, your companions, or them are part of a kill, they will try and loot the stuff that I find most people want to loot. So I find every time I'm playing, I always tend to grab these 4 types of things. And then, you know, in the early game, I might be grabbing things like armor and weapons, but most of the time I'm ignoring those because I'll already have them and I just don't want to bump down my carry weight. And obviously, if you wanted to hand off those things, they are still treated like companions. You can trade with them. So that means you can take this stuff back from them, and you can also give them, you know, go pick up all the random weapons and armor and hand that to them. It's possible that I will add things like junk weapons and armor here as options in the future, but for now, I wanted to keep it to the types of stuff that that I know that most players are going to be interested in. And then one thing with the ammo is it is semi-intelligent. So if a particular soldier is the only one that uses an ammo type, they will be the one that will loot that. Another buffer with this auto loot system is that there's about a 15-second delay after combat ends before they actually loot, so you have an opportunity to grab out the stuff you want real quick. Otherwise, if you miss that window of opportunity and they're already looting, you can just go trade and take this stuff from them, so they will be given it. Otherwise, outside of ammo types, it's done in a round robin style, so the chems, grenades, and ammo that's shared between them will kind of be shared in a somewhat equal fashion so that you can be sure your guys are constantly being re-equipped with more gear. We're going to skip this next option until after we get to the squad, until I show you the squad commands, when this will make more sense. The mortality, you can actually turn this off. So if you find it very frustrating because most people's rank 1 soldiers are very weak, you can turn this off. Another balance option, if you want to make things a little harder on yourself, if you turn share XP on, it will cause the number of your personal guards to reduce the amount of kill experience you get. So this could be a great balancing feature if you feel like this is too powerful to have all these personal guards running around with you. Another one that I think could be a lot of fun for scarcity players is use ammunition. So when this is on, you will have to keep your squad equipped with ammunition. And this is one of the reasons that led, the idea of this is what led to the auto loot being a necessity for me. But the idea there is you would have to constantly be forking over ammunition to them, which would get expensive, especially if you're into scarcity or playing in survival mode. And so, again, this could be a great balancing feature if you want it. But it's off by default because I thought most people would find that to be very, very time-consuming to have to constantly be handing over ammunition to them. Again, you have the auto load ammo to kind of balance that, so I think it kind of balances itself out, but this is up to you to tweak and play with. By default, what you see here on my screen is the default options that are set up in the personal guard system. Now, while we're in this menu, I'm going to pop down and show you one more thing here. If we go down to tracking, which this is something that was added quite a few patches ago, and I don't think I've covered this in a video, but I am going to show it here anyway, is you can turn on personal guards as a separate tracking in that system. But in addition, personal guards have their own tracking system on top of this. And so when we eventually get to a video covering this tracking system, I'll come back to this. But I'm going to turn this on to show you where it is for personal guards, because personal guards are actually kept separate from your traditional soldier tracking. So in the data section under your quest, you'll see that you have a squad tracker as soon as you grab your first personal guard. And by default, it doesn't show anything being tracked, but you can see as I turn that option now, each of these guys has a thing over their head. This is disabled by default because it seems kind of excessive. It seems unnecessary, though it could be useful if you're losing track of some of your guys. But we have another tool to help with that, which I'll show you. It's part of the squad command system. But this could be one way you could track down if you're missing somebody, if you're not sure where they went. But by default, that is disabled, and I'm going to disable it again because I really want to show you the what I consider the better squad tracking system for personal guards. So let's go ahead. Let's go back down to tracking, and we'll turn that off. So get those off of their heads. But the tracking system that is on by default that I really like about this is go ahead and kill one of these guys. Man, you guys are tough. There we go. Wow. The Super Mutant Faction Pack. Very powerful. One of your personal guards died. So you get that little notification, and then the map marker will pop up by default. And again, this is all done through this squad tracker. So if you turn this off, if you untrack this, this will be gone. But one of the things that I thought would be cool is if after I went back and found the body and looked at it, that tracking would be cleared. So that is how it works. And then you can see there 15 seconds passed, so the other two cannibalized and grabbed their gear automatically. So we got to see the auto loot system at work there. But yeah, that I did because I felt that most likely with your personal guards, you're going to equip them with really good gear. You're not going to just rely on the armory. You're going to want to try and make them survive. So you'd want to know when one of them died. You'd want to be able to go track them down and pick up their equipment. So that system is all on by default. So everything you just saw happening, you don't have to tweak anything. The tracking thing I was showing you was just another thing in the MCM menu. If you want to track them at all times and have map markers, you can do that. But by default, I think this tracking system works really nicely. It just kind of happens as you would need it, and then it automatically clears itself without you having to do anything special other than what you'd expect to do, which is walk up and loot the corpse. So the tracking system by default is built in there, and you'll learn more about that other tracking system in another video, because that tracking is very in-depth and can work for more than just your personal guards. It's actually possible for working across your entire faction. All right, now the final thing I want to show you with personal guards is the command system. So if you head to your War Planner's desk and you look at just the right spot, so you can see depending on what you're looking at, you get different options. Well, if you look at the desk itself, so if you get the base part of the desk down here, you should find a craft option. And if you hit that, you'll see a utility section. There are 2 squad things, and you'll probably want to craft both of these. Unless you're an MCM user, then you can actually hotkey these things. Although if you're like me, if you use a controller on PC with MCM, then the hotkey system is less useful. But it is available here. If you go to mod config, Conqueror hotkeys, you'll see that those same objects, so activate squad command mode and open command menu, are both available. These are the same things as if you're using those objects that you can craft. In addition, you can also hotkey 2 of these specific commands, which I'll show you how those work in a moment. But for most of you, I think you'll be using it via the actual items. So they're designed so that you can favorite them. I tend to put the squad command mode in one of my 4 corners so that they're easily accessible, and then the menu a little bit harder, a little bit further off. Oops. And you can also activate them right from inside of your Pip-Boy, but they're obviously most useful from here because the most likely time you're going to want to be using this is in combat. So let's go into squad command mode. This is my favorite part of the personal guard system, in that you can issue a command.
Get into position.
It goes to everybody in your personal guard system. It's not just one. So it's not like your companions, where if you have a mod like Unlimited Companion Framework, if you wanted to issue a command to each of your guys, you would have to go to each of them, hit the command option, and then issue them that command. They can all be given the command at once. And this leads us back to that option from the beginning when we first came into MCM that I said we'd come back to. So if we go back to our personal guards here, there is a setting called Companions Listen to Squad Commands. So if you have this turned on, then everything I'm showing you right now about the squad commands will also apply to your companions. And that does work with things like Unlimited Companion Framework.
Go!
So you could have all of those companions you have traveling around with you act as if they're in your squad, and they will follow these commands. Now, you'll notice that there can be some lag to these commands. This is just the life we live in a Bethesda game. Occasionally, things are slowed, but it's especially pronounced with this particular system because the way we did this is a little hacky. Effectively, we have like an invisible NPC that has no collision box, so you can't interact with them, that is being told to be followed. So it's a little trick we did, but it works pretty well. It just, there's a slight delay because the first invisible NPC has to start going before the others will follow suit. But it does work really well, and you can move out. You can control your whole squad like this. Now, by default, the commands are done RTS style, and what that means is that once you issue that command, they will wait for future commands. They don't just resume to following you if you exit command mode. So with the default companions, as soon as you exit, and of course they're making a liar out of me, and that's because off camera I was messing with some settings. So let me show you how to resume that. So by default, and any of you guys who are playing this for the first time playing with this, you're gonna find this after commands is set to wait. So apologies, I'm doing things a little out of order here, but that made me a liar and I don't like it.
Go!
So by default, it's set to wait, which means you issue a command and they're going to wait there until you give them another command. That's the default. But there are, if you turn that to follow, and there is a way you can turn it to follow without meaning to, and I'll show you that in a moment. But if you switch that to follow, then as soon as they're done with their command, they'll wait 3 or 4 seconds and then they'll resume following you, unless you're in command mode. And that is the default behavior in the game. That is how vanilla NPCs react. One thing to note that I only learned while researching this system is that when you're in command mode, you can actually have your weapon out and shoot. So you can still participate in combat and have control of your guys. So issue them commands, you know, to go
get
flank,
into position,
or you can actually target an individual enemy, and that go will switch to, I think it's just a kill or attack. I don't remember what the wording is that the game uses, but you can actually keep this on and still be a part of combat and issue commands to your squad. So if you want them to focus fire, if you want them to move out of, you know, Molotov or something, or you see somebody pulling on a missile launcher, you want to get the heck out of there, you can do that. So you can issue these commands while being in combat. But another thing we changed is that even if you don't have that command set to wait, so even if you have it on follow afterward, one of the things that I've done differently than the base system is that once you issue a command, even exiting command mode won't cancel that command, which is something that I felt was more natural. I always was irritated that I would leave command mode and then my follower would not do what I told them to do. So by default in our system, once you issue a command, it happens unless you give them a different command, and that is where this squad command menu comes in handy. So sometimes it's not convenient to have to point at different things. Also, what just happened there to me can happen to you occasionally. Sometimes when you hit command mode, it won't trigger. It's pretty rare, but it usually has to do with other things that are around you that are interactive that are interfering with it. So like if you're near something interactive, like I think I was hovered over the silt bean when I tried to do it, it can prevent that from actually working correctly. And I don't know why that is, but it is. Just seems to be some sort of game engine quirk, so just be aware of that. But sometimes it's not convenient to have to manually assign it. Sometimes you just quickly need to issue a certain type of command. And the nice thing about this squad command menu is it does pause the game because it is bringing up a UI menu. So there are a few options here. Obviously, you have the thing I showed earlier, which is you can switch the after commands, how they function, whether it's wait or follow. You also have these two options down here, which I'm sure you've seen in other mods, the follow distance, which are close, medium, and far, which how close your squad will be to you. And then your aggression, you have 3 types of options. I think people call them different things in other mods. This is the way I've decided to call it. Aggression engage enemies means that any enemy they see that would normally fire on them first, they will gladly engage without you having to do so first. Next up is do not engage. That means even if they're attacked, they're not going to do anything unless you tell them otherwise. So if you unless you specifically issue them a command to attack, they're not going to attack. They'll just chill. The next option is counterattack only. That means if they are attacked, they will respond. They will counterattack. And then we go back to engage enemies. So those 3, I think, those are your options to toggle. And then these next 3 are ways to quickly issue commands to the squad without having to indicate a position. So the first one is very important to note, is that when you choose rally on me, This does what you'd expect. It tells your guys to come to you, but it also switches after commands to follow, because it assumes that you're just quickly trying to get all your guys to follow you again. So rally on me actually issues 2 commands. It's the equivalent of pointing at the ground with command mode on and telling them to move there, and also switching after commands to follow. So it's like 2 commands at once. Something that's very unique is hold position. So if we trigger this rally on me, and then we quickly hit, if I can do it quick enough, hold position. If the game, the game didn't respond quickly enough. Occasionally hold position will work fast. Sometimes it doesn't. The game's AI system is not designed for rapid commands, unfortunately. It's designed for things to be done as needed and only under dire circumstances. And there are limitations on the AI, because AI is very computationally expensive. They have to come up with their pathing. They have to make a decision in their logic tree. So AI is notoriously CPU expensive. So this game heavily limits it. So sometimes you'll find that your commands just aren't fast enough. But if you're giving out long commands, so if you send these guys like way over here and then you issue a hold position command, there's a good chance that it will stop them before they actually make it to their command. It's especially effective, and yes, even at that it didn't do it. It's especially effective though during during the follow mode. So when they're just following you around, or when they're making their own decisions, because when they're on follow, they're effectively using the same AI as your companions, where they follow you most of the time, but occasionally they're going to just, kind of wander near you. When combat comes, like, all bets are off. They're just kind of just going wherever they want during combat, which is cool, but occasionally you want them to stop charging in, and so hold position is more useful there than it is in this command mode, where they won't necessarily, where they're likely what's happening is the command you're issuing is superseding that hold position. So hold position, very useful during a combat scenario where you have little control, less useful when you're already issuing them commands. And it makes sense, because you could really, if you just want them to not run where you told them to, then just
move out.
Tell them somewhere else to go. But the hold position is meant to make them kind of freeze in place. Doesn't always work reliably. But anyway, that is available on the squad command menu. I think one of the most powerful ones is instant rally, and what this does is teleports all of your guys behind you. And this is one of those things that is super unbalanced, and so is not usable during combat. So it will only work outside of combat. So you can rally these guys behind you. It tries to put them behind you. It won't always succeed. Sometimes it will put them in front of you, like if your back is up to a wall or something. But it tries to put them behind you for immersion's sake. And the reason that was actually added, first of all, it's convenient. But second is because of the notorious issues with the AI in this game, where it can get stuck. But also because the default system of having this follow these after commands on wait, which I love the feel of that. I think it feels really good in this game to have them give commands, especially when I'm getting into a big squad and I'm trying to set them up, for an ambush or something. I want them to acknowledge my commands, and I don't want to have to sit in command mode the whole time. Is that having them wait there is very convenient. And it'll be especially convenient once we get into more complicated uses of this squad command system, because the ultimate goal for Conqueror is to allow you to define multiple squads so that you could give multiple commands. And then we would want you to be able to issue commands like you're playing in RTS. You give one group one command, and then they're going to wait there for the next command, then you move on to another group, as we want to be able to emulate that feel. Well, in that case, it could be very easy that you forget to give your guys a different command. So I issued them that command. If I were to go wander off elsewhere in the game world without fast traveling, if I just walk over there, they're going to stay there forever, and I'm going to lose track of them. And then the instant rally means I can bring them right to me. So it has a lot of usefulness to it. So instant rally is very powerful. I know it would be broken in combat, and so it cannot be used in combat. But just like rally on me, it does switch them over to follow. So if you like the wait mode like I do, just remember, if you're messing with these rally commands, that it does turn that off. So you need to pop back in, turn that back on if you like it. So those are your squad commands, and if you want your companions to be a part of that, you can do that by turning that system on in the personal guards option to make the companions follow squad commands. So I think that covers everything with personal guards. There's always new features being added to Conqueror, so if you find there's something about personal guards that's working in a way you didn't expect or that I didn't cover in this video, definitely comment below, and I'll be happy to make follow-up videos on additional features. It's possible even in the next patch that gets released just days after this video comes out that there's additional features, because we're constantly working on new stuff. But the personal guard system, and in particular that squad command system, is something that I love and look forward forward to adding much more stuff to in the future. So watch for potential follow-up videos of additional personal guard system information.